Hello and welcome back to another episode of Purpose Through Fitness, a community designed to encourage you to live a more positive, happy, and healthy lifestyle. We are going to uncover secrets of the body, the mind, and the spirit to help put you in the best position possible to live a more purposeful life. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of Purpose Through Fitness. We took a little time off. I've been finishing up my 12-week body transformation challenge for the Redcon One Supplement Company 2020 readiness trials. My results were absolutely incredible. Super proud of myself and the work that I put in. I'm going to discuss those results a little bit in this episode, but I want to get into something that's been very, very important to me in my training, and I'm hoping it can offer some advice to you guys as well. I think it's some really simple tricks for you to be able to uncover and push your limits a little bit farther than what you truly think you can. You know, the academy that I'm currently in right now, the Unbeatable Mind Academy, which is run by an ex-Navy SEAL commander, Mark Divine, teaches us about our 20 times potential. Essentially, that means we are 20 times more capable than what we believe we are. And a lot of work that you do, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, a lot of times when we're currently working on a project or doing something, again, whether it's, maybe writing or reading, working out, whatever it may be, we have these limiters in our brain, these limiters that tell us there's only so far you can go. And when that first thought or that limiter kicks in, you've barely even tapped into what your potential is. So what I want to teach you today is some techniques that I've used to help me push my physical and mental limits to new heights. It's very, very simple to do. It does require a heightened awareness of yourself and to be able to do these tasks consistently, because your mind is going to wander. We know this all throughout the day. A lot of times we might sit down and dedicate ourselves to doing some work, and then we find ourselves drifting from one thing to another. We think of something, and then next thing you know, it's been an hour since we've actually sat down and done some work. So I'm going to teach you today some very simple tips for pushing your limits. So we're going to get right into this in a bit here, but first I'd like to go over my results from the Redcon One readiness trials. I'm currently working on the 12-week program, diet, and workout plan that I did during these 12 weeks to have available for anybody who wants to give it a try as well. A disclaimer, I am not a nutritionist, I am not a doctor, so please consult them before embarking on any drastic change physically, diet, nutrition-wise, whatever it may be. But I wanted to release to you exactly what I did because of the increased results I did. So when I first started the trials, I was roughly 196 pounds, a little over 196 pounds, and I was stepping on the scale at about 16.5% body fat. Now, this body fat was calculated by my Fitbit scale, so I don't know how accurate it is with how my true body fat was, but I wanted to weigh myself at the same point in time in the day, at the same time every single week, and do it consistently on that scale. And, at least you get to see what the trend or what the numbers were. So it's something that I calculated. Another piece of advice with this, if you are going to be doing any weight loss, weight gain, whatever it may be, at the very most, only measure your body weight once per week and do it on the same day at the same time of day. I personally recommend in the morning when you wake up and go to the bathroom. After you go to the bathroom, then step on the scale. That's going to be when you're closest to your truest weight. If you start measuring multiple times throughout the week, we have fluctuations with water weight and things like that. That's going to throw you off. And if you get too distracted by the number on the scale, you're going to find yourself losing a lot of motivation and not staying as consistent with everything that you need to. So Leading up to the trials, I was doing an intermittent fasting where I was eating about 6 to 8 hours a day and then fasting for about 16 to 18 hours a day. That started to change after my first week or so. I started condensing down and I got it to where I was eating within a 4-hour window and then fasting for 20 hours. Now, they do show with intermittent fasting that it's usually around the 12-hour mark of fasting that you start to really see the benefits. And the further you go, the more added benefits you can get from not just weight loss. You know, a lot of studies are actually showing that the fasting does not really hinder much weight loss. You're not going to see a huge difference in the weight loss or fat loss from intermittent fasting or eating periodically throughout the day. But as far as overall general health, regulating insulin, regeneration of your cells, overall health, there's a lot of studies that are showing the benefits to that. So that's why I embarked on it. It wasn't just to lose some weight, but it was twofold for me. I wanted to reap some additional health benefits, and then I also wanted most of my day to be occupied towards either working out, planning on working out, launching my business, doing my podcast, my blog, YouTube, whatever it may be. And I didn't want to have to worry about what I was going to eat and spending the time cooking and eating. So condensing this all down, what I did was once every 2 weeks, on a Sunday, I would prep out my meals for 2 weeks. It was very difficult because for that 2 weeks, I was pretty much eating the same meals and snacks every single day. It was easy for the first 3-4 weeks. After that, it got to be very, very difficult because a lot of the stuff was the same. I wanted to give this everything I could, so a lot was plain chicken with not too much flavoring, eating a lot of broccoli and cauliflower. A lot of the same things without a lot of the condiments and flavors built in. Now, I did have some flavors in some of my meals, but for the most part, I wanted to keep it as lean and clean as possible. Starting the last 6 weeks of the competition, I not only did the intermittent fasting, but I followed Jim Stoppani's intermittent fasting carb cycling, which essentially for the first week, I started with 3 days of medium carbs, 3 days of low carbs, and 1 day of high carbs. And then you eventually work it down where the final 2 weeks for me were 5 or 6 days of low carbs and 1 high carb refeed day, which happened to be my high cardio day as well. And what this does is if you ever hit a plateau with whatever diet that you're on and you really can't lower the carb count much more, then doing carb cycling is a way to really keep the fat loss process going. And it was really, really difficult for me because, again, not only was I eating the same meals, but I was carb depleted quite a bit for those last 2 weeks, to the point where I was only getting at most a 0.5 gram of carbs per pound of body weight. Now, this is not something that you can sustain for a long time, but for the purpose of what I wanted to do, it served its benefits. So needless to say, the diet was the hardest part for me. My workouts were fantastic. Blessings be to God that I did not get injured throughout that time. I did not get sick throughout that time, which again, I think really leads to not only the nutrition that I was on, but my recovery work, which was, yoga. I have a massage gun, breath work, meditation, all this stuff really played into the recovery process. So even though I was beating my body up, I was able to recover in a relatively rapid time. At the end of the readiness trials, you can actually see the write-up on my webpage, purposethroughfitness.com. I ended up losing about 21 pounds. So I went from 196 down to 175. After losing the 21 pounds, I was down to about 11.7% body fat. Again, this was according to the Fitbit scale. How accurate that was, I don't know. But the best part for me was I gained size in my arms, in my chest, in my thighs, in my calves, The only measurement that really went down for me was my waist, which is exactly the sweet spot, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to have more of the V look, the taper look, but I also wanted to maintain muscle mass as well as, keep my strength. And again, because of how everything was planned out, how the diet and nutrition was, I was able to not only keep muscle mass and strength, but I actually gained strength on all my major lifts throughout the entire 12 weeks as well. So it was one of those slow and steady processes, but I got the results I needed, and I was super, super happy. I don't know if it's going to be good enough to get into the top 6 for the finalists for the readiness trials. We do find that out in about another week or two. I know there's a lot of people who are, professional bodybuilders who have done this before that, they unfortunately went through a quote unquote bloating period where they tried to make themselves look bigger and more out of shape and then went into their severe cutting phase. I didn't do that. I just ended up slipping through the holiday season and eating way too many carbs from just prior to Thanksgiving all the way through Christmas and the end of the year. So I wanted to get back on the train and also make a commitment to myself that this year in 2020, one of my goals was to not fall off that diet no matter what happens. So as the holiday season approaches this year, which hopefully everything is relatively back to normal then, I plan to be fully back on track with everything I want to do. So again, if you want to check out what my results were, I wrote a little post on my website, purposethroughfitness.com. You can check out as well on my Instagram, Path to a Higher Self, which I do want to let everyone know, all of my listeners and supporters, thank you so much for being here. I am going to be continuing the Purpose Through Fitness podcast to be centered more around fitness itself, but there is a new podcast and blog coming out called Path to a Higher Self that really fully encompasses the entire human being and uncovering our true potential. Through my journey of addiction and depression and even into fitness, I've become rather obsessed with exactly what the human potential is, how we can tap into that potential, and how we can continue to push our limits. So for anybody that's listening to this, thank you so much for supporting me on this. We're going to continue this community and this page, but I also want you to check that out as well. You're going to get a lot more as far as emotional development, mental development. We're going to get into things like breath work, meditation. I'm hoping to interview some really big names, some people who have done some incredible things that we look at on the surface and we say, that's not humanly possible, but they did it. And we're going to really dive deep into exactly what they believe is responsible for them being able to get there. And maybe some of us can tap into that as well. So again, look out for that. You can check out the webpage right now, pathtoahigherself.com, as well on Instagram, Path to a Higher Self, Facebook, Path to a Higher Self, and check me out on Twitter, Path to a Higher Self. That's the number 2, Path to a Higher Self. So again, let me get into the bulk of today's show, which is some really easy tricks to pushing your physical limits. So the first one I want to start with is developing a mantra. Developing a mantra is not only good to sidetrack you from the physical activity that you're doing, but there's actually a lot of science behind it on how repeating a mantra over and over actually has a difference on the chemical composition, allowing you to push yourself a little bit further in whatever workout that you may be doing. So for instance, when I go on my runs or my weighted carries, ruck marches, whatever that I do, I have a simple mantra that I repeat over and over and over. And it's something that usually kicks in for me. For instance, if I'm running, some of my longer runs now, I like to go, maybe 10, 11, 12 miles. I'm looking to push that and bump that further as I get closer to running my first ever ultra marathon. But as I do these longer runs, after about mile 3 or so, I can start to feel a little bit of, not necessarily fatigue, but some of the lactic acid. You start to get a little bit of the first limiter in the brain, that first limiter that tells you, oh, I can't go any farther. That's when it starts to kick in for me. And as soon as I feel that kicking in, all I repeat to myself over and over is, I am unstoppable. I am unbreakable. I am unbeatable. And I repeat that over and over and over. And no matter what music I'm listening to, now what I do when I'm on my runs is I listen to like positive speeches or motivational speeches. And despite what I'm listening to, I still repeat that over and over and over. And I actually mix it in with step number 2 here, which is conscious breathing. So a lot of times when we're working out, we tend to not pay attention to our breathing. And when we don't pay attention to our breathing, typically when we're doing physical activity, we're going to see a lot of shortness of breath and not taking full breaths. So what that's doing is it's actually depleting the body of clean, fresh oxygen. You need clean, fresh oxygen to be sent all throughout the body to really oxygenate the blood, your organs, your muscles, and everything. Everything in your body requires oxygen in order to operate at its full function. So we want to make sure that as we're doing physical activity, as we get tired, we're really focusing in on that breath. Now, during some exercises, especially strenuous cardio, whether it's high intensity interval training or doing long runs, it can be very difficult to really do the deep breaths in and out, but it is possible with practice. So for people out there who are runners who are having difficulty breathing, I want you to practice the first 2 minutes of every mile, or start with a minute. Probably better you start with a minute. For the first minute of every mile, breathe in through the nose for a certain number of paces, and then breathe out through the nose for a certain number of paces. See if you can do just strictly in and out through the nose. This is going to help regulate your this is going to help actually regulate your heart rate. This is going to help put fresh oxygen in and control the air coming out. And if you can do that in with your pace, so let's say you're, depending on whatever pace you're running at, inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, however many steps, just to keep yourself thinking about that. It's going to provide to be very beneficial. And you want to try and work up to do as much of that conscious deep breathing as you're working out as possible. I will admit, when you first start doing this, it is going to prove to be rather difficult and you're going to feel that shortness of breath, but keep practicing it. I'm telling you, it's quite beneficial. And when I said that I mix in step 1 and step 2, what I like to do is take deep breaths in for 4 paces, and then my breath out is my mantra. So it's in 1, 2, 3, 4, I am unstoppable. In 1, 2, 3, 4, I am unbreakable. In 1, 2, 3, 4, I am unbeatable. And this is what I repeat over and over and over. And the cool part is, not only is there a chemical composition that's different, not only is it going to help aid the blood with not only is it going to help regenerate and re-energize the body with the oxygen you take in, but a lot of times if you focus on the inhale in your mantra, you find yourself so distracted that lactic acid buildup, soreness, tiredness, all this stuff seems to go by the wayside because you're so solely focused on the actual mantra and breath that you forget about the other things, which helps you push further. And if you really get in the zone, you're going to start to notice that the mantra and the breath, your pace actually starts to increase the further in the run you go and the deeper that you delve into the actual mantra and breath work as well. So again, number 1 is mantra. Number 2 is going to be your conscious breathing. That brings me to number 3. Number 3, I think, is a really cool and easy technique for anybody, whether you're just starting or whether you're a seasoned person looking to break some plateaus. This goes back to, again, the limiter in our brain. We might go out for a run, a walk, a jog, whatever it may be, and we think to ourselves, I think the farthest I could go is a mile, so I'm just gonna go run a mile. So we go out, we run a mile, we come back, And we think, hey, great, I did a mile. I did as far as I said I was going to do. I'm happy. Well, I want you to push that. And an easy way to push your potential within that is if you're running outside, instead of, let's say you want to run a mile, instead of running a half a mile out and a half a mile back, I want you to run a mile away from where you want to finish. This is going to leave you with another full mile coming back. That means you're going to have to do double what you thought you could do or what you said you wanted to do. And what you're going to find is the human mind and body is far more capable of pushing its limits than you think. And it's usually once we get started and we get in the flow of things, we start to realize what we can do. And a great example of this on a small scale to me is cleaning. Think about it. A lot of times we sit there and we say we don't want to clean. I don't want to clean my apartment, my house, whatever it may be. But then you start and you get in the flow of things, and what happens? Next thing you know, you're cleaning things you didn't think you would. You're cleaning under the couch, you're cleaning in between the cushions, and you're really not satisfied until everything is fully clean. And it's the same way with physical activity, especially cardio, where a lot of times we say this is as much as I could do, but if we force ourselves to go that distance and know we have to turn around and do double that, we can find that we are much more capable of doing these things than we originally thought. So number 3, again, I want you to double your distance you think you can walk, run, jog, whatever it may be. Pick a point that's as far away as what you want to do currently, and then run that far out, turn around and double that distance. That's what I started when I got into running. 5Ks turned it into 10Ks, 10Ks turned into half marathons, and it's a really great way for you to uncover some of your potential inside of you. And if you're anything like me, when you do this and you start doubling these distances, you're going to start being very curious as, well, if I was able to do that, what else can I do? And then next time you might want to say, well, I did 2 miles last time, let me do 2 miles. So you can run out 2 miles, turn around, come back and do 4. If you are hesitant or scared to double it, let's say you do want to run 2 miles, run out to 1.5 miles and then turn around. So when you're done, you do 3 miles, which is an extra mile over the original. But I think the double technique actually works really well because, again, you are far more capable of doing way more than you originally think. So I think doubling whatever you want to do is not only viable, but it's really going to help you realize that you are far more capable and full of this potential and limits. Now, number 4, and the last one I'm going to talk about today is rep ranges. Now, a lot of times we go to the gym, or let's say we're doing workouts at home. We set a total number of reps we want to do. If I'm doing air squats, let's say, hey, I want to do 50 reps, or push-ups. Okay, let me do 20 reps, whatever it may be. I want you to develop a rep range. And what I mean by that is, let's say you want to do 20 push-ups. Instead of putting 20, pick the number you want to do, 20, and then add 2 to 3 to it. So say, okay, 20 to 23. And as you're doing the push-ups, when you get to 20, I want you to feel that obligation of trying to get to the higher side of the rep range. And you're going to find that, again, much like the running, if you think you're only capable of doing 20, or if you know the number is 20 and you're doing push-ups, chances are you're so revolved around doing that number that as you approach it, 16, 17, 18, your body will start to shut down, get tired, and tell you, nope, I can't do any more. Whereas if you have a little bit of a higher rep range, you're going to be able to squeeze out that last 1, 2, or 3 reps. So whatever exercises that you're doing, create a rep range and make sure you're documenting this down, because you're going to want to make sure you're not only keeping track of your progress, but you're going to notice on the days that, let's say, you've got 10 different workouts and you do the minimum amount of reps for all 10 of those workouts, you may find that, you know what, I could have done one more rep in each one. And then that's going to make you eager the next time you go to work out to do that additional rep as well. So again, create a rep range for what you're going to do, not just a total number of reps, and see if you can push yourself, even if it's just to get that one more rep per exercise. Doing just that one more, that little bit of effort may seem minute, and it may seem like it's not going to do anything. And you know what? It might not that day, but if you can stack those days consistently, one after the other, of doing just one more of each individual exercise, one more rep of each individual one, and you stack that up each day, each week, each month, that is going to have an exponentially greater effect on you than doing one rep less. There will be a dramatic difference in the future, and being able to push yourself and do that little bit extra than what you thought you could or what you originally planned is actually going to feed over in the rest of your life. You know, you might find if you're trying to read and you say, I want to read for 20 minutes, well, that might turn into 25. You might be eager enough to say, well, you know, I was able to push myself physically to do this little extra. What else could I do a little bit extra? And you're going to start to notice some really great benefits from it. So again, to repeat today, our 4 tips. Number 1 is your mantra. Develop a mantra that works for you, something that really connects with you, and utilize that over and over and over. You can say it out loud if you want, or you can just repeat it quietly in your head. Mix that in with number 2, which is conscious breathing. Be aware of your breath as you're doing physical activity. The deeper the breath in and out, the more oxygen and energy you can provide to your muscles, the longer you can last, and the more quality work you can put in. Number 3, running out farther than what you expected. If you're doing any kind of cardio, make sure that even if it's a bike ride, if it's swimming, whatever it may be, that you set the limit at where you want to go, and then you run or bike to that point, turn around, and have to do it all over again. Number 4 is going to be setting a rep range. This works for lifting weights. This works for if you're doing high intensity interval training and you say you want to do 20 seconds on and 10-second rest. You know, do 20 to 22 seconds, and you might find yourself being able to squeeze out that extra rep, that extra second, and that can have a profound difference on how you feel, how your results will show, and your overall mindset on attacking certain things all throughout life, whether it be business, whether it be relationship-wise. You might start to uncover some additional potential that can cross over into your average everyday life. Many blessings to each of you. I'm so happy that you did join me today on this episode. If you've made it this far, I am truly humbled and blessed when you take the time to listen to the work that I've put in, to listen to any advice or anything that I say to you. So I truly am blessed to have you here. And you know it wouldn't be the Purpose Through Fitness podcast if I didn't leave us off with a little Bible verse that I found to be applicable with today's lesson. And today, I want to read to you Philippians chapter 3, verse 13, which says, "Brethren, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead." Now, this may require some interpretation on how this applies with today's lesson. Personally, I think this points to, again, when we get tired, when our brains first shut off and they tell us, no, you're done, you can't do any more. We need to forget about what's already been done. We need to forget about that pain, and we need to keep pushing forward. We need to keep going, because we can increase, because we are created in God's image, and we have this deep, unique potential inside of us to really break our limits, control our minds, and push further past than what we ever thought possible. So many blessings to you all. Again, thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, please comment, please share this with anyone you think needs it. Please follow me on social media as well. The YouTube channel is now up and going. Path to a Higher Self. Again, if you didn't hear in the beginning, I will repeat. The Purpose Through Fitness podcasting blog will continue, but we are starting a new podcast and blog called Path to a Higher Self, which is really going to help us tap into the human potential in all aspects of our lives. Many blessings on today, the week ahead. If you're listening to this 2 years from now, whatever situation you're in, know that I love you, know that you are amazing, you are beautiful, and you do have that unique potential inside. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you guys soon.